Okay, well, we'll go ahead and get started. I just wanted to say welcome everyone and thank you for joining today's webinar, Cybersecurity 101. My name is Erin Fitzgerald. I'm the event manager for the Rhode Island chapter of SCORE. I'm thrilled to be here with you today. Before we dive in, I'd just like to briefly introduce SCORE. We're the country's largest network of volunteer business mentors. SCORE has been helping small businesses for over 50 years by providing free, confidential business mentoring and educational resources to entrepreneurs across the country. Whether you're just starting out or looking to grow your business, SCORE is here to help you help guide you through your journey. So really excited about this session today with your presenter, Gregg Cranshaw, who I will hand it over to now.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Let's get started. So my name is Gregg Cranshaw. I've been working in the information technology field for over 25 years with a focus on security. In that span, I've worked in the private and public sectors, medical and financial industry, and specifically working in cyber for the past 8 years. I've started my own business. I've worked on the board of a small nonprofit business. And my security related certifications are Certified Information Security Manager and Certified Information System Security Professional. So why cybersecurity matters to small businesses? So cybersecurity is critical for businesses of all sizes, especially as digital threats grow. Large businesses tend to have the resources, money, expertise, staffing to deal with or absorb a cybersecurity incident, where small businesses tend to struggle and at times may never recover from them. Just like any other threat you and your small business face, you have options on what you can do about it. You can ignore it and hope you never have to deal with it, which I would not recommend. Or you can face it and take some time to understand what it is. Most of you will find that just like any other issue you face as a small business owner, some training and preparation can help you manage it, which brings me to my goal today. So my goal is to help provide you with some simple, useful, and practical information that you can take back and immediately start making small changes that will collectively make a larger impact to help keep you and your business safe and operational. There are many different types of threat actors out there. Advanced threat actors are very skilled and know what type of businesses they are looking for. Typically, they're not targeting small businesses. It's the threat actors that are looking for quantity over quality that you need to worry about. Those are the types of threats that cast wide nets looking for anything, which can be a scary thought, but you can also use that to your advantage. Awareness, or the lack of, is the biggest problem when it comes to cybersecurity. Knowing what you need to look for, how to be proactive to help mitigate any potential vulnerabilities, and how to prepare will go a long way in keeping you and your business operational. You can rely on the fact that if you have yet to be a victim of a cybercrime, it is only a matter of time. Your employees, including yourself, will always be one of your greatest security risks. And that is because an employee can unintentionally or intentionally fall victim to a phishing scam, misplace a laptop, leak sensitive information, or just be human. Let's look at some ways to help mitigate that. Here we'll look at small businesses run by the owner or owners without any employees. Taking some simple precautions can help prevent most incidents from even happening. So use strong, unique passwords and multi-factor authentication everywhere. Get a password manager. There are plenty of free and inexpensive ones available today. Use it to create a unique, strong password for every account you have. Do not use the same password anywhere else. If you use one strong password for each of your accounts, you're increasing your chances of having those accounts compromised. If only one of those vendors has a breach and their passwords are exposed, hackers will turn around and use your account details, which typically contains your email address, and try and hack into any other system using those credentials and specifically crafted attacks. What does multi-factor authentication mean? In its simplest definition, multiple authentication methods. What it means to security professionals is something you know and something you have. So something you know would be your username and your password. Something you have typically is a temporary one-time password generator, which you would see as a security key or a YubiKey device, a phone app that generates one, or the third party you log into generates it and sends it to your email account or your cell phone. Together, they create a very strong way of proving your identity to any third party that in today's world is considered secure enough. Do you use a computer to operate your business? I'm sure most of you do, especially in small businesses, you tend to kind of multitask with your devices. Keep it up to date. Um, Windows laptops, iOS devices or tablets, if you have a Mac, all of them have easy ways to maintain the latest secure version of that operating system or the software that you have. Don't put it off. Apply those updates. Safe browsing habits. Again, I'm sure you use a computer for some portion of your business and multitasking. It's easy to just use that computer for switching to your personal life and then back to your business. Use a different computer for personal use. Keep your business work on its own computer. This will help eliminate any accidental clicks that can turn into a catastrophe. Almost every data breach you have and have not heard of comes back to a human being clicking on a link. Protect you from yourself, your spouse, your children. I have stories from parents that were asked by their kids if they can quickly just look something up that they needed for school. Parent says, okay. Kid works on the laptop for a few minutes, clicks on something that looks harmless to them, but it quickly just installs malware without them knowing. They finish up and they walk away. Next thing you know, you're on your business computer, you're typing in your credentials, and they quickly are phoned home the next time you log into any other account. So separating those or siloing your information from one another is a very easy way to make things more secure, especially for your business. And things change when businesses change and grow. You should consider investing money in cybersecurity just as you would any other important function of your business. Hire or outsource a professional in cybersecurity. This way they can learn your business and help figure out what path is right for you. You want to try and avoid spending money on buzzword tools or controls that may not have as much of an impact as you think they would. Bringing employees into your growing business increases your risk. Establish cybersecurity protocols before you start hiring personnel. It's much easier to start with secure controls in place than it is to try to put them in place after your staff has learned to work without them. If you're going to provide any type of technology to your staff, make sure you have an acceptable use policy in place before you bring them on board. What is an acceptable use policy? This is a policy that specifies what your business considers acceptable and unacceptable when it comes to the use of technology. It's important to document this, especially what you would just consider obvious when it comes to technology. Have a lawyer review it. Make sure you're not overstepping any boundaries or missing anything. At the end of this webinar, I'll provide you with some useful resources that you can use and take away for help with some of this. Provide cybersecurity training as part of your onboarding process. It shows your new employees you take it seriously, and it sets the expectation right at the get-go. Making cybersecurity part of your business is the best way to tell your staff that it is important. Make it important by assigning that role and making someone responsible for its oversight. The easiest and most common attack vector threat actors use are your employees. These attacks typically are easy to spot with some common sense, but with artificial intelligence, these types of attacks are getting much harder to spot. Provide cybersecurity awareness training for your employees on an annual basis at the very least. Threat actors and their tactics are always changing. Having a good cybersecurity awareness program that provides ongoing training to your employees is important. If your employees have good cyber hygiene, so will your business. Again, I can provide some resources at the end of the presentation. Cybersecurity has to be part of your business governance. Leadership has to lead by example and not do as I say, not as I do. It won't be effective, and I speak from experience. By making it a part of your business's DNA, it'll be easier to implement security policies, and just like any other policies, you'll need to monitor them to make sure that they are being followed and enforce them when they are not. Just like cybersecurity awareness training for your employees, leadership will need to keep abreast of cybersecurity best practices, which will help you keep your security policies up to date. Cyber hygiene is the procedures businesses use to maintain the health and resilience of their IT systems. Practicing good cyber hygiene will go a long way in helping you keep your business and its assets safe and secure. Let's look into some ways to help you do that. Sometimes we can lose focus on what our goal actually is. So it's important while going through this process to take a step back at times and reassess what you're trying to accomplish. Technology does not always hold the answer to our problems, and most of the time, keeping it simple is the best option. So just make a list. Make it easily accessible and easy to update. Easy is the key here. If it's complicated or difficult, you won't do it consistently. Knowing what you have will help you in a number of ways. It'll make it easier to understand if you have vulnerabilities and where they are when new threats are communicated. So I'm sure many of you have heard in recent news updates about the CrowdStrike issue that came out. If you have a list of all of your assets and what's on them, when that news broke, it was very easy to understand that it was any Windows machine, and it was any Windows machine with CrowdStrike Falcon installed on it. And if you had that, you were having a very bad day. If you have that list to fall back on, you can easily go and look and understand if you're affected by this or if you're not. And there are other ways to get news and threat channels that you can subscribe to that can provide this type of information to you so that you know what you're looking for and when. And again, I can provide some resources for this at the end. If hardware is lost or stolen, you know what your exposure is. Let's say one of your employees calls you in a panic. They misplaced their work laptop. They can't find it. They don't know if it was stolen. Do you know what was on it? Do you know what your exposure is? If data privacy laws change, do you know if those laws apply to you? And if you are in violation of them? The GDPR, or the General Data Protection Regulation, this act is for covering all EU citizens. Do you collect personal identifiable information or PII? Do you have any PII for EU citizens? Then that GDPR regulation applies to you. Do you collect data from Massachusetts citizens? Massachusetts data privacy laws will also apply to you. So these are things that you need to keep abreast of and aware of. And if there are changes, knowing what you have will help you understand where your exposure is and where your risks are. Now that you know what you have and where it is, do you keep it up to date? Security updates are released for just about any software and operating system on at least a monthly basis. You have to make sure you're applying security patches to fill those security holes that are constantly being found. Does the operating system or software offer a set it and forget it setting to apply security patches? All operating systems release security patches monthly. Make sure you're applying them. Most software vendors release security patches for their software. Get familiar with them and how they apply those updates to make sure you're using the latest secure version. Don't forget, those small appliance security devices, firewalls, wireless access points, they also require security patches, and they're more critical being located at your perimeter. Do you know when your hardware or devices will stop receiving security patches? All hardware and software vendors at some point will stop supporting their products, and they will stop releasing security patches for those products. It's important to plan for upgrading and replacing hardware and software outside of just when it fails or stops working. Be aware of the basic security measures you should be using. Make sure you have a physical firewall appliance between you and your internet connection. Make sure you have some type of endpoint security software installed on your devices to provide protections on web browsing and malware. Do you often use flash drives to move data around? Do you know where that flash drive has been? Make sure these security products are well known and up to date to help protect you and your business. Now that you have your asset inventory and you know where your critical business data is it being backed up? Can you access your backups? Have you tested a copy of your data from your backup? What are your risks when applying security patches to critical business processes? If you're using a laptop for a critical process for your business and you apply an update or patch some software that's on it, and all of a sudden you can't use that, be aware of the risk that you're taking by doing that. There are many different approaches and options for backing up your data. There are services you can pay for to provide automated data backup. You can use a cloud service that automatically backs up your data to the cloud. You can manually make a copy to an external drive. Which option is right for you? If it is just you, keep it simple. Otherwise, consult the professionals. Now that your data is being backed up, who has access to your data backups? Are you using a shared cloud account? Is it also your personal account? Is it secure? Do you have an offline copy in case of ransomware? Sometimes the simplest thing is the best way to go. Put a copy on a flash drive, keep it in a secure place. Depending on the size of your business, you may be doing all of this on your own. Again, keep it simple. As your business grows, you will need to rely on professionals. I'm not looking to get involved with recommending vendors for this space, but there are plenty of managed service providers for information technology as a service. I would highly recommend going that route until you're able to hire your own internal IT staff. There are pros and cons to outsourcing IT and using your own staff, so do your homework before you make your decisions. So now that you've crossed all your T's and dotted all your I's, what do you do when something goes wrong? This image here it shows you this. It's from a very popular online site, XKCD. They have very funny IT related comics that they do. And this one's particularly good in a very small way of showing you what you have here is a very what they call modern digital infrastructure. And you can see someone took a lot of time in most of this structure. And right near the bottom, there's this very tiny brick. And they list it as a dependency for a project some random person in Nebraska has been thanklessly maintaining since 2003. And it just goes to show you if you're not paying attention to the details, it's very easy for something to be missed. And in this scenario, one simple little brick could bring down the entire structure, regardless of how much time and effort has been put into maintaining it. Planning for these types of scenarios will help you get through and overcome them. In plain words, an incident response plan is a list of instructions to follow in the event you have an issue. There are plenty of templates and examples for these plans that you can find on the internet. And again, I have some resources at the end that I can provide that'll help you with this. Some things to think about and include in your plan. Include a contact list of names, phone numbers, and email addresses for your critical contacts, your incident response team, any technical contacts, law enforcement, the press, advisors, any other additional resources that you may have. Put them all in there. It should have processes for you to follow when facing an emergency. We tend to not think clearly. Writing down the process you need to follow will help you navigate through the noise that you will be dealing with. For instance, what would you need to do if your business laptop was lost or stolen? A small business scenario with one laptop. Well, was it lost or was it stolen? Do you have any options to track it down? What if you find it, but you're not sure if it was tampered with? So steps to take after an incident. Contact your incident response team. You need at least one other person you can talk to in the event of an incident. Your business partners, a lawyer, IT people, your spouse, people you trust. You need to identify the cause of the incident. It most likely will require some investigative work. Say files on your laptop have some odd names that are popping up now that you haven't noticed before, and it's starting to run slow. All of a sudden you see a ransomware notification pop up. I think it's pretty clear there that you're having an incident. Next step, contain the incident. Unplug the laptop from your network and or turn off the wireless network interface. Do you have any other laptops or devices on your network? Are any of them showing the same symptoms? Try and isolate it to where you're seeing the issue happen so that it doesn't increase its damage. Then we move to recover, and this is where your disaster recovery plan would kick in. Do you have a backup laptop? How do you purchase a new laptop? Where is your software and your backups? Try to preserve the compromised laptop if possible for a forensics investigation. Now that you've recovered, you need to assess what happened. What caused the incident? Was it a phishing email? What was on the laptop? Were you able to recover anything from it? Was anything lost or stolen or exfiltrated from it? Did you have any customer data? A forensics investigation will help here. Then you go into the notification phase. Do you need to contact anyone? Laws will dictate this. HIPAA, if you have any medical information or deal in the medical field, the GDPR, the mass data privacy laws, all of these have guidelines, and rules that you have to follow if you have data that meets the criteria of those laws. Local law enforcement, the FBI, public or press, customers. Do you have any laws that require you to reach out to any of these? Was PI at risk? Was it stolen? Communication is a big problem with every breach you see in the news. Documenting when, who, and what will help you stay ahead of the situation before it becomes a problem. And then do a lessons learned. What went well? What did not go well? How can you prevent this from happening again? Documenting that, following through and making those changes so that you can stop that incident from ever occurring again is extremely important. So a disaster recovery plan's purpose here is to help you recover from an incident, or rather getting things back to normal operation after an incident happens. A business continuity plan's purpose is to keep your business running during an incident. Without it, your business may not be able to fulfill its obligations during an incident, and some businesses may never recover from it. Let's go back to the ransomware example in the prior slide. Without a business continuity plan, if it took you a month to get a new laptop delivered and up and running, would your business survive that? A good business continuity plan starts with what are your risks? Environmental. Is your business at all at a flood risk? Supply chain. Going back to that picture with that one little brick all the way at the bottom of the foundation. Where do you rely on outside resources? Your employees. Do you have any employees? What if one of them or all of them left? Do they have critical knowledge that you don't know of? Once you have identified your risks, you can start planning on how you can prepare for those scenarios to keep your business running and document those plans. Identify roles and responsibilities for your plans and assign them so everyone knows who is responsible for what during an incident. Identifying and communicating a chain of command during an incident. This allows your staff to act in an organized manner rather than sit and wait for someone to tell them what to do. It will also prevent someone from going rogue and making decisions on their own. The added benefits to this, you can uncover hidden risks that you are unaware of. It improves employees' view of your business and shows them that you take it seriously. It improves your communications with your staff and your customers. Makes your business become proactive instead of being reactive. And in conclusion, just some fun here. Security awareness training should be taken seriously, but hopefully this is not a real life scenario. Cybersecurity for small businesses is not complicated. Just like any other business related issue, it requires some effort to make sure you're doing what you need to keep your business safe. Let's quickly review some simple steps small business owners can take to limit your cyber exposure. Putting security policies and procedures in place, continuous cybersecurity awareness training, and assigning cybersecurity oversight to help keep your employees safe. Practicing good cyber hygiene by keeping track of your assets, maintaining your assets, and the importance of having secure, tested, and available data backups. How to be prepared for when something goes wrong with an incident response plan, and to keep your business up and running with a business continuity plan. It all comes down to limiting your vulnerabilities, which will lower your overall risk. There will never be zero risk, so putting plans in place to help guide you through when those incidents occur are just as important. Think of it as purchasing insurance for your business. It's there when you need it. And just like insurance, without it, your business may not survive a crisis. It's also important to remember that there is no end to being secure. The threat landscape changes constantly, and you will need to keep up with the latest threats to try and protect yourself from them. And artificial intelligence is a perfect example to that. Right now, artificial intelligence can be a great tool for those that see good and want to do good with it. It can help you run your business. It can help you write policies. It can do many great things for us, but it can also be used by bad guys to do many bad things. So there's always a good and bad side to this. I provided some resources for information and training. So under cybersecurity information, the first link there from CISA, Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency. This is a great resource for small businesses. There are plenty of templates. There are news and threat feeds that you can sign up for that can provide you with up-to-date threat information so that you know if your business is exposed or what your exposure or vulnerabilities may be, depending on what today's threats are. Then there's the Small Business Administration, which is another great resource, also for some threat management templates and all sorts of other information that you can pull from there. CISSecurity.org, the Center for Internet Security. This is a great resource for all sorts of security related tools. They've been around forever. And then in the security awareness training, I listed out here 3 different vendors that you could look at as options. They all offer great security programs. The Security IQ, SANS, and KnowBe4. They're great options for implementing security awareness programs in your business with online training, phishing campaigns, and all sorts of tools to help keep you and your staff on top of the latest threats. And finally, thank you for allowing me to provide the time here and give you some information on cybersecurity and how to keep your business safe. I know I have the floor open for questions.
Yeah, excellent.
Mm.
Thank you so much, Greg. Yeah, we do have some questions that have come through in the chat and the Q&A box, so I can read some of those out to you. We do have several folks asking about safe password storage, particularly if you would recommend a password manager, as several have been hacked, and what you might do if it's been hacked, and if you would not recommend a password manager, if there's any other methods you'd suggest for creating, memorizing, and or storing passwords.
Uh, yeah, so I tread lightly here because I don't want to favor any vendor, and I understand exactly what you're talking about in regards to the password manager that was hacked. I can tell you 2 off the top of my head that I know are really good. There's 1Password and Bitwarden. Bitwarden is also open source and it's free to use. And their plans are very inexpensive. So those are 2 great choices that you can use. And remember, password managers are only as good as you protect them. So you can still protect a password manager with multi-factor auth and make sure you don't use that password for your vault and anything else.
Thank you. Someone else commented on how AI has gotten good at copying voices, which makes voice recognition risky. Would you add anything to that about voice recognition, the technologies, avoiding that, or your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so where small businesses need to be concerned, and I'm aware of a number of situations where this has happened. Um, Artificial intelligence can be used to easily mimic somebody. I mean, you typically won't see this in a very small business. This is more of a spear phishing style campaign where they're targeting a high profile executive. But there are instances where threat actors have used artificial intelligence to mimic a voice of an executive. They've called or used nefarious, very well thought out plan to eventually get someone in finance for that company on the phone and pretended with artificial intelligence to be that executive and get them to wire money. These are like common situations that can happen. The only thing I can say, you can put protocols in place for this. So, anything that involves any type of immediate wire transfer, or another common one is where somebody will say, I need you to go and spend like $1,000 on gift cards and then send them to this address. Put protocols in place where if there's any type of money spending over a certain amount, have backup options for means of communication that aren't common. Don't you can have it be where the person needs to call you on a specific number, reaches you then also on a specific email. Same thing with multi-factor auth. Just come up with different ways that you can put steps in place that no one else will be aware of but your staff, that they need to follow in the event that they're faced with that situation. If you address that ahead of time, it's much easier than allowing the hacker to use that scenario for your staff where they're putting them in that heightened awareness situation where I need this done immediately. And then they start to lose their train of thought in thinking securely, and they're thinking more, I just need to get this done. So again, that kind of just comes back to the training piece, but that's a great way to try and avoid those types of situations.
And before I go to the next, I'm seeing a few follow-ups to the password manager question. Just if we could spell out the password manager firms that you mentioned. Someone said, did you say Bid Gordon? Or if you
Oh,
could spell it out.
sure. I can, I will type that in the chat.
Awesome.
Let's see. I believe this will go out to everyone.
I will type those out. I think yours might have gone just to the
Oh, no.
host. So
Yeah, you know what?
yeah, I just copied and pasted it.
Okay.
Perfect.
I don't have everyone listed on my drop down.
Yeah, no worries. Okay. Now I wanted to, folks have also asked, do you have any recommendations for how you could find out whether there is malware on your computer already? How do you know if you've been infected?
So if you're unsure and you're alone on this, I would definitely recommend using a professional company, whether it's a local business that deals with computers. It kind of depends on, I guess, what level you're at. So like you do have companies like, I know Best Buy offers a service. Any local vendors that you can use as well. There are plenty of managed service providers that will cater to small businesses. Um, I don't have any of them listed just because, again, I kind of wanted to avoid that area. There are plenty of them in Rhode Island that you can look out to, and they will offer you on-site, or you can bring it to them. That's the route I would definitely recommend going, um, especially if it's used for your business. You don't want to mess around. I know sometimes it's easier. You have a cousin or relative that may know, and that may get you by for a little bit, but I would definitely recommend to go the route of looking for a managed service provider that offers IT services for you. And again, there are a number of them in Rhode Island. If you look up MSPs for information technology, and you can narrow the scope to Rhode Island, there's plenty of them that you get there. I know my contact information is in there. I can probably list out a bunch of them as well if you reach out to me directly.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that starts to answer some of the other questions about what cybersecurity company or person would you recommend for a small business? Someone else asked about how much it costs to hire that kind of service. If you had any insight there, or would recommend just searching for that information.
Yeah, I could probably provide some if you send me a contact information. I don't want to show any favoritism. There are a handful
Mhm.
of them that I'm aware of. So from a cybersecurity perspective, there are businesses that will offer you um, basically blocks of time, and they'll let you borrow a CISO, which is a great tool. This person can come in, learn your business, and then they can start to structure a program for you on how you can keep your business safe. And this is a great way to slowly grow and build to where you can then actually bring on board your own security personnel internally. Um, that's the route I would recommend to try and go with, the small businesses that really can't afford to bring anybody internally. It's with the focus on cybersecurity that's come up. It's very common. Even some of the managed service providers for IT will offer that service as well. So it's a great tool, and it's really important that they take the time to learn your business so that they can accurately give you a path that's suited for you.
Yeah, and we had, just to share with everyone some of the things that have been coming through the chat, so everyone knows the conversation. Someone else, when talking about testing backups, mentioned that they concur on this recommendation to test, because when trouble hits, it's tough to find out that a backup was not even done. Someone else mentioned that they use Carbonite for daily backup. If anyone was interested in what folks are saying they're using. I don't know if Greg, you had any other suggestions in terms of backup software.
I mean that I it depends on your setup really. So like Carbonite, as mentioned, that's a great tool. There are a handful of other vendors that are similar to Carbonite. I can't think of any of them offhand, but I know there are constantly um, new ones coming up. You can also go the route of using a cloud service provider for storage, like OneDrive or Google Drive. I believe Amazon offers one for their S3 bucket storage as well, and it's just clients that you can install on your machine that would back them up. That's kind of more of a small business style method to approach there. Um, Hopefully that helps. I mean, there are plenty of options out there. I would recommend going the route again of consulting the professionals for what works best for you. If you're a small business, keep it simple, work with something that you know and that is easy for you to understand and maintain. I do see a question in there about cybersecurity insurance for small businesses. That's a great question. Cybersecurity insurance initially was very easy to get. It's not so easy to get anymore. Most insurance companies are wise to the situation that they're exposing themselves with. I will tell you that going that route sometimes will add extra resources to your toolkit that you did not have. I know if you have an insurance company that you can add cyber insurance on, they typically will require you to complete certain types of security audits so that they know what your security posture is for your business. And in doing this, they will provide those resources for you. So it could be an added benefit or a way of getting those resources in to help you improve your security posture as well. So, um, but cybersecurity insurance, it's a great option. I do not consider it the one solution though. It's just an additional arsenal that you can, or tool you can put in your arsenal that can help you in the event that you just did not plan for this one scenario. The insurance may be something that can save your business.
To follow up on the conversation about backup systems, someone asked, do you recommend another backup if using Google Drive or OneDrive?
So if you're a small business, like one or two people, and you're using Google Drive or OneDrive, to back up your business data. What I would suggest is also making a copy on a thumb drive and having that offline. The nice thing with both of those vendors, the agent does keep historical data, but there's always that chance that if you missed the encryption piece and the historical data pushes back too far and you can't go back in time to find an unencrypted version of your file, that you could lose it. Or that a vulnerability comes up that they're unaware of and somebody uses that to somehow stop you from gaining access to that data. So just throwing a copy of it on a thumb drive is a useful tool that you can use, maybe monthly and alternate between a couple of them. And it just gives you that peace of mind that you have another option just in case.
Also seeing, there was a question about third-party systems and who's responsible for cybersecurity for these systems. So,
Ah,
for example, like CRMs, like HubSpot, and Squarespace.
Squarespace. That's a very good question. All of these vendors have to provide some type of cybersecurity posture for their own insurance, for an audit trail, depending on what their exposure is and what they're subjected to. And your contract with them typically will cover some of this. So I would suggest going and looking at your contract that you have with this vendor to see what they offer for you for information on how they maintain their systems and where your exposure begins and ends with them. There Typically, this is something you would do when you first engage with a vendor and talk about whatever it is that you're trying to have them accomplish. During that implementation portion, or when you're exploring what their options are, you can talk to them about their security, what different laws that they have to they're subjected to, or guidelines, what type of security audit documentation that they can provide to you. Um, these are all things that they will have to provide you, but it's usually based on your contract. So, and they all offer there's some type of shared model responsibility with these. So it's important to kind of read those security guidelines and understand where your exposure begins and ends with them. I hope that helps. There's so many different hosted providers depending on whether it's software as a service or infrastructure as a service, and they all have different variations on what level of security they accept responsibility for and where they pass that on to the customer as well.
I'm also seeing it's potentially a related question about how safe are large companies like Shopify with our data. I'm not 100% sure if that's referring to from a seller standpoint or from a customer standpoint, when it, can sometimes those systems can save your shopping data or your, information when checking out. So I don't know if you have a thought on either sides of the transaction on how safe those systems are with data.
Yeah, so if you're using some type of payment system, um, and you're concerned about data they're collecting and you're using it for your customers, most of those companies do have, they're typically required to, and if they don't have one, I would not do business with them, some type of a data policy that it should be public facing, where they show or explain what data they're collecting, how they use it. They typically good vendors will list that data privacy policy that they maintain by or live by. You can ask them for it if they don't have it public. Uh, but if you're really concerned about data collection, I mean, that is the business that most of these vendors are in. I can tell you that if the product that you're using is free or it's too good to be true, it's because they're collecting data, and that's where the money is. So almost all of them are going to be collecting data. All you can really do is hope that they have, or ask them that they if they can provide you with their data privacy policy so that you understand how they're using that data, whether they're selling it, what your exposure is. And this is what you would need to know to pass on to your own customers and for your own benefit for your business.
Um, I guess I'll do a last call for any questions. I do see a comment that someone entered, that in an introductory meeting with an IT security person, they immediately said they need to implant software into my system that would inform them of everything they needed to know about my system on a daily basis. I felt uncomfortable and terminated the session. So yeah, just wanted to share that for everyone. I'm not sure if, Greg, do you have a response or thought on that situation?
Yeah, so I mean, the way that most vendors will deal when you're talking about a managed service provider for IT, um, they will want to install a client on your machine. And this is why it's important to make sure it's a reputable vendor, um, and not just some small vendor. You want to do your due diligence by researching the company, um, making sure that they have a good base. They've been around for a while. There's good reviews in them. If you know anybody else that's using them, all of this stuff will help. If they have a physical presence in Rhode Island that you can visit or talk to, I mean, that's great. But they all will require some type of agent or client that they're going to put on your machine that they're going to use to maintain it. And this will be part of their, at least in my past experience or experience recently with most of these style vendors, this is the process that they will go through. Um, they should go through at least an exploratory conversation with you on how this works and what they do. If they're just dropping this on you last minute, and depending on how this conversation started, I would have concerns with, what the intentions are with that person on the other end of the phone. So I think if you are unsure with it, it's probably good at that point to just terminate the session like you did.
So I guess I'm seeing two last questions, or maybe a third just pop through, so we'll do these last three. Someone asked, what other safety measures are available in case there is an adverse relationship with the IT vendors? We also see somebody asking about PayPal or Square and cybersecurity coverage. And then the last one about how good is the quality of standard PC security systems offered by computer manufacturers.
Uh, okay. So other safety measures you can take, this still comes back to having a reputable IT vendor. Um, if you have a reputable IT vendor, you shouldn't have to worry about a situation with an adverse relationship. Um, but one of the things I would suggest to definitely discuss with them before you sign up or sign a contract with them is how termination of that contract would work, because there is software that they will install on your machine, and the software will have access to your machine. So if you need to cut ties with that vendor, you need to understand what that means and what processes you would need to go through to eliminate that access. So this is a good conversation that you would want to have before getting involved with a vendor. If you're already in the situation with a vendor and you're starting to come to terms with the fact that you may need to cut ties with them, um, I would suggest reaching out to them and at least starting the conversation. And unfortunately, the only other option you have there is hopes that you can sign on with a new vendor that would help you purging the old vendor from it. But that is a real problem, especially with today and how things are being handled with access to uh, client machines. Um, I hope that helps. For the PayPal or Square cybersecurity coverage, um, I'm not sure I understand the, the question specifically. Like, Are you asking if you had cybersecurity coverage, would it cover you for using PayPal and Square if they were exposed or had a breach? Um, if that's the question you're asking, the answer to that would be no. Um, PayPal and Square will have their own agreements with you if you sign up to use their payment processing, and your cybersecurity coverage typically will just be your footprint or your technology footprint. It won't cover any exposure to Square or PayPal. Of course, I mean that's something that you could ask uh, the vendor or the insurance company at that point. Um, Typically, though, that they're only going to look to cover you. Uh, Quality of standard PC security systems offered by computer manufacturers. So that's a tough one. Most antivirus products that are provided with a machine, at least in my past history, have never been great solutions. I would recommend going with a mainstream provider, um, someone that is very well known. And typically those are not cheap as well, especially if this is your business laptop. You want to make sure that you're using a very well-known product that's used by um, many different companies. And for that fact, their exposure is higher. They're going to be used to seeing more types of threats and different types of situations so that they can help protect you from. It's just a better solution than something that's not so mainstream. So, but typically what the manufacturer provides with the machine is not enough.
That brings us to the end of our time here today. Thank you so much for your attendance and all these great questions. Please do feel free to reach out. We'll be sending these slides in the recording, so you have Gregg's information here as part of the slides, and it will be coming from my email, which I also put in the chat if you'd like to reach out to me to ask any questions about SCORE resources. But yeah, thank you all so much for joining. And thanks, Gregg, for the wonderful presentation and answering those great questions.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me today.
All right. Bye, everyone. Have a great evening.
Take care.